I'm trying not to find myself in any trouble if I might be susceptible to that. He's not popular. If you watch the show in question, you'll know his face, but most people have never seen him in anything else, so he's far from an A-list actor like Willem Dafoe or DiCaprio. It's hard to even claim he's B-list because his only well-known production is one TV show. Sure, his filmography page has several other movies and shows, but none of them were ever popular, and as something of a cinephile, I feel I'm in a good spot to make that claim. So yeah, I'm going to call him a C-lister, and that's not out of spite for what eventually goes down. So, let me take you all back to a conversation I've had with my wife, once in a full, and been reminded of several other times. She saw the guy on the TV and said a bunch of nonsense about how he's so handsome, his body is so hot, his voice is so sexy, and on and on. Then, out of nowhere, she says, I want him to be my hall pass. I was very confused by this, so I asked her to clarify what a hall pass is, because those only fit into a high school context in my mind, so it didn't make sense. Well, I bet that a lot of you know, but for those of you who don't, a hall pass is a stupid slang term for the one person that someone in a committed relationship can sleep with without it being considered as cheating. When she said this, I remember I audibly scoffed and told her how stupid it was that she'd even say something like that to me. It devolved into a whole argument that night, but before I slept, I realized that it was basically impossible that she'd ever get the chance to sleep with Nolan. It was mainly the disrespect of saying that you still desire outsiders sexually that got to me. If you feel that much lust towards someone, fine, but to admit it to your husband is crazy. Honestly, for the next couple of days, I was still reeling from the disrespect, and I even wanted to come up with some mega hottie to claim as my hall pass in front of her, but it just seemed childish. I decided to be a mature adult at that moment, and I spoke to her at length about how disrespected I felt with the hall pass comment and her thirsting over him, generally speaking. She apologized, though it didn't really seem like she understood why, and we left it at that. Over the next few months, maybe 6 or 7 months, she slipped up at least 5 times. Watching the show or seeing him on social media, and she'd make stupid comments pertaining to how drop-dead gorgeous Nolan was. The first 2 times I told her off, but after that, I gave up because I was tired of having uncomfortable conversations. However, it just made me wonder why not doing things that disrespect me was so hard for her. I've slipped up before on things she's been vocal about that she doesn't like, but I've never repeated the offense more than once. So, obviously, over the months, Nolan became more of a sore spot for me. I started to get pissed off every time I'd see his face in the show. Again though, he was just a face on a screen, so there was really nothing to worry about, right? Wrong. A convention was coming to the city next to us, and thanks to Nolan's Instagram page, my wife found out that he was going to be doing a meet and greet thing there. She didn't consult me on her going, but instead informed me that she was going too, and spent the 2 weeks leading up to it gushing nonstop. At that point, I really loved her, but the obsession was irritating me deeply. In fact, at a point, I got so frustrated that I blurted out, I really don't think it's a good idea for you to go if you're going to act obsessed like this. She just shot me a horrible look, but I decided to insist, and I said, I really don't think you should go. It's a city over and you didn't even consult me before making a decision. She said nothing, and just left the room, and honestly, I was happy to have gotten it out of my system that I let it go. I assumed that she had gotten the point. Well, until the day of the actual meet and greet, when I saw her wheeling her suitcase to the door. I asked her where she was going, and she told me to the other city, for the meet and greet. I think my mouth dropped open because I really didn't think she was going to go through with it. My ride's on the way. I'm going with Susie, a friend of hers who had twice been unfaithful to her husband, though the poor chap had no idea, and we're going to stay the night there in a hotel, so I don't need to come back at night. I'll be back tomorrow morning. To say I was enraged would be an understatement because this whole situation was really touching a sensitive area for me. But I decided I'd let her go and we'd deal with the aftermath of the whole thing after. In retrospect, that was a bad idea, but it's not like I was going to physically restrain her, so I guess I had no choice. I should have tried harder to stop her from going, but I guess if I did, I wouldn't know what I know now. So, the entire day went by with basically no communication from my wife beyond her sending a dry text letting me know when she got to the bus station and when she arrived in the other city, and then she basically went dark, until the next morning. I swear, I called at least 7 times at intervals but got nothing from her, which was incredibly stressful. We were not on good terms, but it doesn't change the fact that I thought she could have been in some kind of danger in a city she wasn't entirely familiar with. I ended up turning into an Instagram stalker. I kept checking the stories of the convention and Nolan, hoping to catch a glimpse of my wife, and among about 34 stories that were posted in total, I finally saw her in one. So I knew she got to the convention safely. It helped put me to rest a bit, but I was still pretty pissed. 7 missed calls, and she didn't have the decency to return one of them. It would just be added to the list of issues we had when she got back. Anyway, as promised, the next morning, I was woken up by the sound of the door to our house closing. My wife had gotten back from her trip, and as much as all I wanted to do in that moment was go back to sleep, there was a discussion that needed to be had. She came upstairs and found me sitting on the bed. I remember her pulling a really awkward smile as she went to push her suitcase into the corner. How was the meet and greet? Did you meet Nolan? I tried to say that with as little edge as possible, but I'm certain some came out. The meet and greet was nice. Yes, I did meet him, along with a few others from the show. It was nice to see these people in real life. I'm glad you got to experience that. Now, we need to before I was able to get out the rest of the sentence. She jumped in, tears welling in her eyes already. I know, baby. I'm so sorry. I should have asked if you were fine with me going instead of just choosing to go on my own. That wasn't fair at all. And I was annoyed with how things went earlier on, which was why I didn't pick your calls. But I'm so sorry. The calls at night, Susie and I went to a bar and I left my phone behind, so I didn't know you called. To be honest, I was disarmed by her apologizing because that was extremely unlike her. So while it was supposed to make me feel a lot better, something just felt off about it. But I decided that I'd do the thinking later. I asked her if I could see some of the pictures that she took, and she obliged happily. Now, it was at this point that I noticed a red flag. She angled the phone away from my face as she was looking for pictures. It was subtle, but I'm sure it was intentional. Only after opening a picture did she let me see the pictures she took, including some smiling beside Nolan, though she was the one holding her phone and swiping through them. If you have a Samsung Galaxy phone, you'll know that when you're in the gallery and scrolling through images, there's a little bar at the bottom of the screen that contains thumbnails of all the photos and videos in that folder. I saw something there. I was tiny, but it looked like a large swathe of skin tone, like some section of a naked body. I don't think she took that into account when she was showing me the photos, and again, I really couldn't say with any certainty what I was looking at. It came chronologically after the convention events though. That much was clear. I let her keep showing me the images until she was through, and I made the expected comments about Nolan being good looking, how I was glad she had met her favorite, and a lot of other jazz. But I knew what I needed to do as I was saying all of this, so once I was done and she was done, I encouraged her to go and take a shower to freshen up and she agreed to do so with a big smile. Once I heard the water start running, I grabbed her phone right away and went to her gallery. There was one video as the very last piece of media in her gallery and I played it right away. It started off in a dimly lit room. It looked like a hotel room with soft, warm lights, and there was someone close to the camera. I could hear voices, but I couldn't turn up the volume because I didn't want her to hear. But the person near the camera seemed to be propping it up, and once they got it stable, they moved away from it. It was my wife. She was naked. She went to lie down on the bed, and it seemed she was waiting for something. Suddenly, the voices I could hear got a bit clearer as it seemed someone else emerged from the bathroom. The person was naked too, and I didn't even need to see the face clearly to see that it was Nolan. He moved towards my wife and climbed onto the bed. The video was 11 minutes long, and I had to stop there. I couldn't watch anymore. I quickly sent the video over to my phone, cleared any evidence from hers, and I left the house. I didn't know where I was going,